All right. Good evening and welcome to Scotty Talks About at the Lake. I'm at the lake tonight. If you can see out the window here, I'll just show you quickly. There's the lake. And just so everybody knows tonight, signal at the lake is going to be a little, because we're at the lake, a little choppy. So we'll just keep watching that as we go tonight. If we freeze for a second, Chris and I both know that we'll be okay, and we'll jump right back in. And if we have to ask this question again or talk about what we're talking about again, we sure will. I have a really cool person on tonight. I'm very excited to have Chris Rutkowski there. I got it. I figured it out. He's Polish just like me, and the two Polish guys are on tonight, so we're very happy to have him. I met Chris when I was up. He hails from. Hi, Chris. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks. Good to be here. Good to be here. Yeah, two Polish guys. I think that's the title of the next podcast series that you'll be doing.
Yes, two. Yeah, I would love that. Two Polish guys talk.
Talk, yeah.
Yeah, I created the show just to talk. I mean, that's why I call it Scotty Talks About, because I'm going to talk about anything, and the people that I have on can talk about anything. So it doesn't have to be paranormal. It doesn't have to be UFOs. It doesn't have to be. It could be anything. So
Right.
excited to have you. And I know I've had a few people on my post this week kind of wonder who you were. So why don't we start out by explaining who you are? Because you're pretty amazing.
I wish I knew who I was sometimes. Well, I'm up here in Canada, and since the mid-1970s, yes, I'm that old, I've been investigating UFOs and strange things. And by that, I mean, when I started looking at the UFOs because I was taking astronomy in university. And after a while, people had come to me at some of the lectures and whatever that I've been doing. And sometimes I go out into the countryside investigating UFOs just out of curiosity as part of my astronomy interest. And they would say, I didn't see a UFO exactly, but there's this spook light over the cemetery. And, it's not far from where the Sasquatch was seen last year. And I'm sure my grandmother comes to visit every night into our bedroom.
That was a big freeze here. I don't know if Chris is freezing. They got
And people were giving
a second. Let me see if I can get this. Hang on, Chris.
there. I'm back.
Hang on. That was a big freeze. There, you're back now. I heard
Okay,
you.
where did I drop out?
At the light in the cemetery.
No, the light in the cemetery, because people had said that they had not only seen spook lights, but they had seen a Sasquatch not too far away the year before, or that their grandmother visits them in their bedrooms sometimes late at night, and she had died a number of years ago, and things like that. So these are all things that fascinated me, and as an astronomer, I was fascinated with the UFOs, and here were other things that were curious because they're not supposed to exist either. So I started talking with people, and they were very welcoming. They were just glad that somebody was willing to listen to them and hear their stories. So I started investigating all kinds of things. So over the years, in addition to investigating UFOs, I've gone into the bush talking with hunters looking for Sasquatch. I've gone into seances in haunted houses. I've been out to areas where lake monsters were seen. So a whole variety of interesting things. And it's not that I think they're all connected necessarily, but they all have a common thread that they're experienced by people who just don't understand what's going on. And to them, it's a real experience. And if science doesn't think it's really happening, then what's really going on? And for me, it's curiosity. What is going on? And it's the stories, the fact that this is a real people type of phenomenon. So I've got degrees in astronomy and education. I have 10 books out. I've been on Unsolved Mysteries twice.
Nice.
I've been on many other TV shows and on the news. Just this week, I've been interviewed about a UFO report that's happening up here in Canada. So it's fascinating to me, and I try to be as objective as possible. I don't dismiss things out of hand unless they're really, really so. Yeah, but I I'm really open. I think of myself as open-minded. What I sometimes say is it's good to have an open mind, but not so open that your brains fall out. And right now, there's a lot of gray matter all on the sidewalk, everywhere you look. Um,
That's definitely the case.
yeah,
Hey, so by the way, I call them, so if everybody wants to know, I call them the Fox Mulder of Canada. We're freezing. But aren't you? See?
yeah.
So, but yeah, it was amazing. We met at a paranormal event in Winnipeg, and that was already, what, 6 years ago?
It must be going back a few years now. Yeah,
6, 7, something like that. That's been a while already. So,
yeah. And did you make it out to Vancouver for the next one after that? That Glenn? No, you didn't make it to that
no,
one.
no.
Yeah.
We all, I think most of it got canceled, most of it, but Glenn did a smaller one with the Canadian
Hmm.
people. So,
Yeah, and we're not that far away, really. I mean, we had been going down to Wisconsin actually for vacation, a nice spot on the shore of Lake Superior. We were renting a cabin for many years, so we're really not that far. Been down to Green Bay. We've been down to which is the Houdini, which is Houdini,
Appleton,
Appleton.
which is 15 minutes from here. So that's where I am. So,
Oh, well, you see, and my wife is she is a big Houdini fan. She is like posters and all the books and into magic and all that sort of stuff. So we went to Appleton, had a great dinner at what's the steakhouse, the restaurant in Appleton, the foot where all the football players go. What's it called?
that ended up changing hands because it used to be at the Paper Valley, right? At the hotel.
I think so. Yeah.
Did you ever eat at Victoria's, which is the Italian place downtown? That,
Okay. I think so. Yeah.
so if you ever get back, let me know because I'll take you out.
Okay. Absolutely.
There's a lot of good food here in Wisconsin, but I'll take you here to Oshkosh, where I am tonight. Probably the best steak in the world. I mean, I've been all over. I went to Omaha. I've been like to every place that says they have good steaks here in the United States, and Oshkosh is the best. They have a tenderloin that's about this big that they serve, and it's always the right temperature, whatever temperature you want it. I always get it medium rare, and it's medium rare. It's not
Fantastic.
medium well. It's not rare. It's medium rare. It's just perfect. I know it's
Fantastic.
great, and it's a king cut, and you can get it Oscar style too.
Oh
With
yeah.
the crab and the
Crab. Well,
asparagus.
I love steak with crab on it. Absolutely. Yeah.
It's amazing. So yeah, next time you guys come to the States, once this whole
Whenever that
pandemic,
is. Yeah. Whatever that is.
I've been doing that on the show a lot whenever I talk about pandemic.
Yeah.
So I wanted to go down the realm tonight of aliens because there's a lot more of that happening even here in the States. And I was thoroughly shocked at the video this year that the United States finally claimed that they could not identify what they saw on the video. Did you see that?
Yeah. The Pentagon actually admitted that what the U.S. Navy released 2 years ago, they didn't know what it was. Well, actually, they were very careful with their phrasing. They said that it definitely was an unidentified aerial phenomena. And there's an interesting phrase. I have to go look for the actual text, but they were being very cautious about it. They didn't come out and say that these were UFOs and spaceships. They just said these are very interesting, and that we're investigating them, and they might have some information in there, and who knows what. But yeah, they did came out. They did come out, and what's more interesting is that the testimonies of the pilots who saw I firsthand what was seen and what we have the video for is actually quite interesting. And what's interesting is that their testimony, what they saw, doesn't match what's on the video, because that was taken with gun camera by a different pilot. But the pilots who saw these things zipping around their planes and stuff, that's actually quite interesting. So if you have to reject and don't believe what the pilots say they've seen, then you have to think, well, these are the people who are defending, North America every day.
Right.
And if they're either A, making it up, or B, seeing things, that should be of concern. So either they're seeing things that are very, very bizarre, or the other side of it is then we're in trouble. There's no in between.
Right. And but I was just amazed that the government finally didn't go, no, it was a weather balloon. 'Cause that's usually what they say.
That's right. They didn't go that far. They usually do something like that. That's true. Um,
And this was
what
like a first time.
Yeah, what most people don't know of your viewers is that I actually, you called me Fox Mulder, I do get the government UFO reports in Canada. Like in
Right.
the States, um, the official UFO reporting system, the Blue Book and all that, finished in about 1969 into 1970, a little bit. And since then, there has been no official, records of UFO investigations by military and so forth, until these admissions by the Pentagon and Navy. And that's only during a period of 2007 to 2012 or something like that. And then more recently, just one of the other videos. But other than that, for 50 years, there's been no record of UFOs. In Canada, there's been a consistent and continuous record of official documentation of UFOs. And in fact, I have, as part of my own research and the things that I document, I have the report from the Royal Canadian Air Force, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, Department of Transport, which is the Canadian version of the FAA. And I get these reports, and to this day, like today, I got reports from the Department of Transport about unusual occurrences. And for the most part, they're really dull, like FAA. They also record things like, medical emergencies, or a blown tire, or bird flight, a bird hit the wing, or that type of
Right.
thing. But every day, there's maybe one or two reports of, you know, pilots flying along, and something they say is a drone flies by their wing at 15,000 feet. Well, most drones can't fly at 15,000 feet, so what the heck was that? Or they're on an approach, or they're flying, over somewhere, and they get what's called a collision avoidance notice. And their transponders and radar goes off and says, hey, there's something that's too close to you. And they look around and there ain't nothing there. And they check with air traffic control and they say, no, there's nothing around. Well, why did they get this notice then? Because that's how they maintain flight and keep their distances from everything. And so the argument is, if these things are going off accidentally and they're malfunctioning, then there's nothing to worry about. But if they're malfunctioning, there's lots to worry about, because it's the public safety that's at stake. Um,
Right.
so you can't have it both ways. There's either UFOs up there or there isn't. And if there are UFOs that are being caught or that are being detected by these instruments, then what's going on? So in Canada, we have a continuous record of this. We don't know what's going on in the States necessarily, although in Canada, some of the flights that we have these records for, a pilot flying from, I know, Albuquerque to Toronto, gets one of these, collision avoidance notices while they're en route between the two countries. So we do
Okay.
kind of have a little bit of information in that regard. So we're finding out more and more, and some people have found some interesting cases into the 70s, for example, and into the 80s, but we just don't have all that information. And where is it going? I don't know. But we do know that we do get a lot of cases in Canada. And as a matter of fact, just not yesterday, day before, um, myself and a few of my colleagues put out what's called the Canadian UFO Survey. It's an annual thing where we document all the reports of UFOs in Canada made in that year. So
Okay.
we did the 2019 edition, which we usually put out in like winter, spring of the following year. So we should have put it out in February, March, but we were just going into lockdown then, and it messed up all our data collection. So we just put it out just this week. And there were 849 UFOs reported in Canada in 2019. That's 2 or 3 a day. Not bad, actually. It actually was a little bit lower than 2018 when there were more than 900. As a matter of fact, we've been going down a little bit over the past 2 or 3 years. So we wondered, well, how's the trend working? And we're already into July. How's the first half of 2020 been looking? Well, we've gone looking. We actually don't tally up things until the end of the year, but we thought, well, let's take a quick look. And from what we've seen, the number of UFOs reported in North America, not just Canada, has gone up at least 50% from last year during the first half of this year. So
Pandemic.
during the pandemic, people are seeing UFOs. So in more and more. So why is
Right.
that? I don't know. People are spending more time looking up. People are, let's say, at the lake. And they happen to have a nice dark
Right.
sky, so they're going to be looking up. They could be enjoying the comet that's out there right now. Have you seen it yet, by the way? Have you
Yes,
seen
we saw. I saw it last night, or no, night before I saw it when we were out here on the lake, and then we had so many they call it shooting stars, but there's just stuff flying into our atmosphere. But we saw probably 5 or 6 of them at the same time, and we were able to see Saturn, we were able to see
Jupiter,
Jupiter.
Saturn, and Venus. They're all up there. Yeah,
got to see a lot just with our binoculars, so it was pretty amazing sky.
Yep. I would encourage
It's all
everybody
beautiful
who's
right now. So I'm just
everybody
like,
who's
that's
watching,
amazing.
everybody who's watching or listening, if you have a clear view of the northwest sky, go look for this comet, because it's probably the best one that you're going to see. I won't say in your lifetime, but for decades. I
It
remember
was amazing.
Yeah, I remember seeing Halley and Hale Bopp going way back, and I would say this that Neowise is maybe as good as Halley. Not bad at all.
Yeah, because so it's Big Dipper. So you got the bottom 2 stars on the Big Dipper that point to the North Star, and then you go straight down from the bottom one, and it's right there.
Yeah,
At least
it's
it is here in Wisconsin.
Yeah, about 20 or 30 degrees up in the sky. Not bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
About
pretty
10,
cool.
10:30 at night. 10:30 at night too, once it gets a little dark.
That's the time we went up. That's the time we went out and saw it, and it looks really neat. You can see the trail. It looks like a star that has white stuff flying off the back of it. It's pretty cool. It's really neat. Yeah. So,
and up here in Manitoba, one of the biggest problems we have is we have a lot of mosquitoes, and we're just eaten alive when we step out of the car. So we have a very quick look at the comet, but we can do it.
Well, that's a funny thing here in Wisconsin. We don't have the mosquitoes this year as we do in most years. So because they're eaten by the pandemic. Okay, so I have questions then about with Canada and United States. Why does Canada keep the records and the states do not? Or do the states keep it but just don't tell anybody?
No, yeah, the U.S. they're keeping record. They have fixing this here. Yeah, there's no question the United States is recording the UFO cases. The Air Force and Navy and probably Army are all maintaining records of UFOs, but they're just not releasing to the public. And whether that's something that's going to come out in coming weeks or months or years, I don't know. But it's just something that is not being released. I know a lot of people want it. I mean, when we started doing this yearly UFO analysis back in the 1980s, we were only getting a couple of hundred cases a year, and then the number of UFOs actually increased over the years, over the decades. And so since 1989, we're in our 31st year of doing this now. We have something like 20,000 UFO reports on file. And the United States Air Force and Project Blue Book, I think, only had 15,000 or something like that. So we actually have more cases than the United States Air Force has made public. And we have full records of them. And a lot of our cases are reports from um, pilots and air traffic control operators and police and military personnel. We get those. So there's some interesting cases in there.
So here's the big thing. What do you think they are?
Well, yes, that is the big question. So, and I have to give this political.
That's the $1 million question.
$1 million,
Yeah.
and I'll give the political question, the political answer. So I have background in astronomy. I know that that out there somewhere there's probably life, but it's like a long, long way away, and we just don't have the technology to travel between the stars yet.
We
But
don't.
what? But pardon me?
We don't.
We don't. Well, this is exactly it. And what I say is
We don't.
that our sun is about an average star. There's stars that are a little bit older. There's stars that are a lot older. And when I say older, not just 100 years, maybe 1,000, 10,000, a million. And if there's a life on a planet that's circling a star that may have a 10,000 year jump on us, they may have figured out how to travel between the stars, not breaking laws of physics, but bending laws of physics. And if so, they might find it interesting to visit us. Now, out of all the stars in the galaxy, why would we be of interest? Well, I say after all this research, I can positively say I see no signs of intelligent life on Earth, and that's just from watching CNN and Fox News.
Exactly.
If there's intelligent life out there in the universe, they might want to stay away, but they might be curious about what's going on here. Maybe there's something unique about us. I don't know.
And the Neanderthals, because we can't even get full internet at the lake.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
But they can come from millions of miles away, but you can't even get internet at the lake. I'm just like, and they send pictures back from from Pluto, which is I guess a planet now again. So
yeah, and I noticed that in the news today.
they can send pictures of.
I just noticed it in the news today. There's a news story about, for the first time, astronomers were able to capture images of planets circling another star.
Right.
And I think that's on all the newswire services right now, which is really cool. I think
that's what I read today too, and that's why TikTok. Yep.
Yeah, and the planets are a little too. They're not quite the same as Earth. They're a little bit too big and too hot or too cold or something. But it's a start, and we think that most stars will have planets. And given that, it's very likely there's life out there somewhere, and somewhere out there's a a podcast and a streaming cast going on where two little guys with antennas are talking back and forth about the stuff that's going on in their neighborhood. So, I think it's very likely.
Yeah, and their video is freezing.
And their video is freezing. Yeah. Curiously, and here's something quite interesting. Your video will not be freezing probably in about 2 or 3 years, and it has to do with there's a UFO connection. That we've received some reports recently of unusual objects flying over Manitoba that look like very large oval tic tacs, all the stuff that people are talking about right now. Well, it turns out that they're testing what's called the Loon. Sure enough, LOON, and it's an internet streaming service using tethered balloons, or not, in some cases, not even tethered balloons, instead of cell towers. So, and it's these Starlink satellites that they've been sending up into space. The reason that they've been sending these satellites, 50 at a time, I think we're up to like 300 or 400 now, is they're going to eventually use these to provide internet service to remote areas. So the idea is that when you get about 1,000 of these satellites in orbit, plus these Loon balloons that are going to be instead of cell towers, you'll be able to connect without cell towers, and your internet will be completely transparent as if you were hardwired somewhere. So, just a
Yes.
couple of years, Scotty, you're going to be clear as a bell without any freezing
Thank
like
God,
that.
finally.
Yeah.
Yeah, you always wonder. Yeah, it's just like that. It's funny because you always see we went to the moon, we did these stuff, we sent all these pictures all over the world, but we can't have full service, on the other side of Oshkosh. I'm like, really?
we
This is
we went
seriously
to the
weird.
moon. What?
Oh, we're
Whoa.
gonna go there, aren't we? Yeah, have a couple more drinks, and
Oh
we could
yeah,
definitely talk about that too, because that's
yeah,
fun.
yeah. So what
So,
have you been doing recently?
go ahead,
You're
freeze.
going to be at a conference, aren't you?
Yeah, we have a conference this weekend in Lakeville, Illinois. Spirits in the spring, but it's actually summer now because spring didn't happen.
Hmm.
So we got Spirits in the summer this weekend. Tickets, I think we have very few left over because Illinois has got the limit of 50. So we're hoping to get all 50 in the room. And we have but then that's not the staff and the speakers. So that's just people that come in. So I'm doing
Hmm.
meetings and we got lectures all day, so it's going to be great. It's going to be on Shadowhunter's page where we're watching this right now. Just look for all the information there. But that's in Lake Villa at the Terminus Theater this Saturday, starting at 12:30, going, and that was on overnight, so it's going to be fun.
Cool. Very cool.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun event. Some great speakers, and hope to see everybody there. So come on down if you're close to Lake Villa, Illinois. So
Hmm.
it's north of Chicago, and it's right on almost on the Illinois-Wisconsin border. So within a mile. So
Hmm.
beautiful out here though today. And I keep looking this way because my phone for the internet is maybe everybody can see it. There's my van on
That's your hotspot, is it?
way over there. So that's the only place we could get signal enough to get it here to where we are at my mother-in-law's house in Oshkosh. So crazy, but but my theory, because I have a lot of theories about aliens. That's why I wanted to talk to you about it, because I'm a big Star Trek fan, and I named my son Picard, and I'm Scotty, and so there's a bunch of us, big Star Trek fans.
You
My
named your
son's name,
son Picard, really?
yeah, his middle name is Christian Picard Rourke.
Oh, that
Yeah,
is so awesome.
he loves it. He loves the name. And then, but funny, we call him Bones for short. I don't know why,
Well,
but we all got Star
I
Trek
have
names here,
Charlie over
and
here.
so what,
Charlie sometimes bothers me. Just stay over there.
yeah, I can see him coming at you there.
Yeah.
So, okay, so I'm like I said, big into Star Trek, big into Star Wars, but and all the space things. But every one of those shows makes no sense to me because I don't think time travel can be like this.
Hmm.
There's got to be some kind of bending of time, space, because there's really no time anyway. Because even in the spiritual world, I don't believe in time. I think that time's just a construct of us here in the 3D, and it's not really a
Yeah.
principle of any.
Yeah. I think time is a property of space, and because space is very malleable in some ways that we humans have a concept of time, but time flows in different ways. Um, and we were just out on our in our backyard today, enjoying the summer. We're just having drinks and a bit of lunch, and there's this little chipmunk we've named Chester, and he comes out of his little hiding spot, and he's scurrying around, and he's doing his stuff. And time passes differently for Chester than it does for us. I mean, their lifetimes are a lot shorter, their heart rate is a lot faster. Their physiology is actually moving at a completely different rate than us, so they experience time very, very differently than we do. And so when whereas time is linear in some ways, in other ways it's a sort of sinusoidal, that it's moving in different ways for different things. Mosquitoes, which we hate and they're bothering us all the time, they have very, very, very short lifespans. And mayflies, they're alive, for just a matter of hours. So their perception of time again is very, very different. And but even for humans, I saw a paper where somebody was talking about or writing about why time seems to pass very slow when you're younger and a lot faster when you're older. And again, it has to do a little bit physiology and a little bit with our brain chemistry. But it is true that it may still be linear, but it has different characteristics and has different parameters. So you're right. Time is a little different than I think we imagine.
Yep. And I've been reading up and doing research myself on we all talk about the different dimensions, and I think past, present, future is actually the one that I like the most right now, is that everything's happening simultaneously, that we're all moving in the same direction. So that's why, as a medium, I can pop back and see the past or see your grandparents in the past and get messages from them, because it's happening at the same time as us. So that's one theory that I'm looking at right now. But that's where I would say that it. What was that?
Do you think there's a line that I remember, something about how space exists so that things don't happen all in the same place, and time exists so that things don't happen all at once.
There you go. Yeah, that makes sense. That's very similar to what I'm studying, because that. So either another culture has learned how to bend the space, so you can, from that star to this star is all of a sudden only that far, and then they can come visit us, or somehow they could pop through, a dimension, or pop through time and be able to come through and be able to see, instead of trying to travel all that way because of the amount of time. Because even if we went to Mars, that's how many years away. So even our astronauts are going to be so much older by the time they get there. They might not ever come back. Was it 3 years or something like that?
Yeah, and the thing is, a lot of hardcore scientists would argue, that all this is impossible because you can't break the laws of physics, and physics says you can't do this and you can't do that. But the trouble is, we don't necessarily have to break the laws of physics. Just bend the laws a little bit, or find new ways of applying the laws of physics we have now. And this idea of folding time, that concept is possible using certain aspects of physics that are being developed now by quantum theorists. So yeah, we're not going to break the laws of physics, but bending them is probably fair.
So that's what I always get. So, by the way, ancient alien theorists believe. I watch all those shows, and that's what they say all the time. I was like, enough. Just tell us what you believe. Who cares who it is? It's like they run that disclaimer too many times.
Yes, yeah. They know better than to have me.
Yeah, True. But actually, you find it.
I was for the most of the lockdown and for most of the pandemic, it's I haven't had any contact from TV and movie producers at all. I've done a lot, but during the past 3 or 4 months, zippo, and then just during the past couple of weeks, I've been contacted again by some productions that are starting to ramp up. And I was interviewed by a couple of TV producers, and one, I made it through the second round of interviews, and they wanted to know what I thought of all sorts of stuff. And at the end of it, the guy says, "You know what? You're too skeptical, and that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for people who are going to just gush about how incredible all this stuff is. So you're off the show." So I blew my big chance again. That's just the way it works.
But let's talk about that for a second, because I mean, I got that in the mediumship realm. A couple shows wanted me to say things the way they wanted me to say it, not the way that it really happened.
Mhm.
And so I ended up on the cutting room floor. So you know how that happens too. So it's just like, but where do you draw the line? You draw the line at your integrity, which I do,
Yeah, yeah,
and
and
be able to tell the truth whatever I do all the time.
yeah. The worst one I think was for me was NASA's Unexplained, where they flew me to, I think, Philadelphia of all places, to do the show, and they gave me a list of segments that I was going to be involved to comment on. When I got to Philadelphia, um, they they said, "Oh, we were going to do film the next day, but let's film tonight because we want to get back or something." I don't know. And so they got me into the where they were filming in the studio, and they gave me a list and all different things than the ones that they said they were wanting me to comment on. And so they said, "Oh, you can comment on this, that, and the other thing. Just say that it's the most incredible case you've ever seen." And I said, "Well, no, I'm not going to say that. It's not the most incredible. It was a yeah sort of thing." And they actually interviewed me anyways. They filmed me, and I'm on each episode for like maybe 3 seconds, sort of, yes, it's a case, and that's about all they got out of me. So it's quite interesting that things work out like that. Now, having said that, production is slowed down. Hollywood and so forth are slowed down. But up here in Canada, they've started filming again. Netflix is filming literally about 3 or 4 blocks away from me some features and a TV series. So depending on how the pandemic is slowing down or whatever, we may see some more production coming. And you're on, Scotty. This is another shot at glory.
And I'm ready for it. Doing mediumship full time now, and this is my thing, doing readings and doing classes and stuff. I am ready. So if you want to cast me, I'm okay. I've been saying that a lot lately, so hopefully somebody sees this and goes from there. So, I mean, but that's my biggest thing is why do we, because I know they want certain things that happen at certain times, but can't say it because if it doesn't happen, because I can't tell you how many people want me to tell them that their house is haunted when it's really not, or their restaurant or their bar or stuff like that, because then they can be more. But I've been to plenty that are, but those few that aren't, I'm not going to say it.
Are you in touch with Kelly Smith at all up here?
Yes.
And Kelly, who those of you who don't know is one of the best paranormal investigators that I've ever encountered, and she tells it like it is. She'll go into a place and she doesn't charge, and she'll tell somebody if she thinks their place is haunted and what the realistic expectations are. And she's slammed quite a bit because she won't go overboard with some of the stuff that they want her to say and hear. Absolutely.
Yeah, Kelly's a very good friend, and she's a really amazing person. So, and she comes down here in the States once in a while. She's at a couple of Paracons in Michigan. She's been at, so
yeah, she
it's
likes
close
coming
to
down.
us here.
Yeah, she comes
Why
down there
wouldn't
quite a
you?
bit. When things open up, she'll be down there again, I'm sure.
Yeah, I don't think you'll ever let us up there, so keep us away.
Well, I mean, maybe you, but everybody
Oh,
else,
okay.
forget it. Yeah, yeah.
I can sneak in. There's a few places up north I know I can get across the border pretty quick. There's no walls on the north side of the United States.
That's right. Yeah, you can swim real far.
And in the wintertime, I could drive my car straight across Lake Superior.
That's
See,
true. That's
there,
true.
so
Yeah.
it's too funny. So, okay, so what is your coolest case or coolest? So what is number one in your books as amazingness?
Well, in terms of UFOs, Certainly one that happened back in 1967 would have to rank right up there. And uh, it was May of 1967, and an amateur prospector, actually a bit of a rock hound. He was curious about this. He was about, I don't know, 50 miles away from the American border into Manitoba, and it's pretty rocky. This is the case that was on, the Unsolved Mysteries that I was on, as a matter of fact. And uh, he was wandering through the through the bush looking for minerals. He had staked a few claims, and around lunchtime he stopped to have lunch. And for lack of any better description, a Hollywood-style flying saucer basically came and landed on an outcropping of rock not that far away from him. And he watched it for a while, and he actually had a background in the military, and he was an engineer and a machinist, and he thought this is ridiculous. I mean, this thing can't exist, and yet it's here. But he realized it must exist because watching it, and he thinks, okay, this was in 1967, so Apollo had actually just started a program. I think like Apollo 1 or 2, which weren't called Apollo 1 and 2 yet, had just been started with the tragic fire and whatever.
Right.
And so there was news about going to the moon and landing on it. Maybe this is an American landing vehicle they were testing, and it happened to have engine trouble and landed in Canada. So he walked up to it, and he heard some voices coming from inside a little door that had opened, and he had the confidence this must be some American NASA secret device. Walks up and says, "Hey, okay, Yankee boys, come on out. I'll give you a hand fixing your broken down flying machine." And the voices stopped, and he thinks, "Oh no, maybe not American, maybe it's Russian."
Right.
And he happened to be multilingual because he was from Europe. Couldn't get any response. He walked up to the thing, touched the side of it, and his gloved hand, the rubberized glove, melted, and a blast of hot gas came out of this, hit him in the chest, set his clothes on fire, set fire to the pine needles and the leaves and whatnot, and this thing took off. And he had to seek medical attention. He was treated in hospital, in the emergency ward. He had second-degree burns. He was examined by the medical doctors at the military base. We have all these medical records. We know what really happened, and we have what they said about it. And it was investigated by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the Royal Canadian Air Force, even the United States Air Force came up to investigate this case. Interviewed him. We have transcripts of all the interrogations of him and his family, and where he worked, and the people from the town where this happened. And they came to the conclusion they had no idea what this was. It was interesting. The site was found. There was radiation found at the site. There was pieces of radioactive metal found at the site, not metamaterial, but pieces of radioactive silver that were found, and they were analyzed not only in Canada but in the United States. And it's a long series of investigations. We have something like 300 or 400 pages of documentation of the investigation by all these agencies. As a matter of fact, my most recent book is based on this. The title is When They Appeared. You can Google it, and but
you can buy it.
and buy it. Yeah, yeah. Scotty will provide the link. And what's interesting is that this guy never talked about aliens. He just thought that this was an American secret device of some sort, and yet. We obviously didn't have that. Otherwise, we wouldn't have gone through with the Apollo program. So it's a fascinating case. There's physical evidence. He was injured with the medical evidence. He even went down to the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, where he was examined by the medical doctors and the psychiatrists who concluded this is a guy who doesn't make up stories. And we have all these medical records. So it's absolutely fascinating, the best documented case. And I argue that it's actually better than Roswell because the United States Air Force doesn't even acknowledge Roswell happened.
Right.
And in Canada, we know this happened. All these agencies investigated, the government investigated, we have all these pages. So it's a really darn good case. So I'd have to have this case right up there. Now, there's no paranormal, spiritual connection to this. In fact, this guy was
No.
definitely not interested in that type of thing at all. But I know that about the same time, there were a lot of interesting cases, and there were some contactee and abductee groups who claimed contact in the same area about the same time. So there might be a relationship, there might be a contact. I don't know if anyone's remote viewed what happened going back in time or whatever, but I note
Right.
that it's been a case that has received a lot of attention and has been recreated on a number of shows. So it's and you asked me why I'm interested in this sort of thing. Well, I don't know if this is proof of aliens or not. I mean, all we know, something definitely happened.
How big was the ship?
About 35 feet in diameter, about 15 feet high.
Okay.
And it was shaped like a standard Hollywood style flying saucer with a dome on
Okay.
top, silver in color. And it was, it was just very, very strange, very, very strange indeed. What's further interesting is that same year, objects about the same size were seen in other parts of Canada. Now, why Canada? I don't know. About 2 months after that, the Royal Canadian Air Force investigated a report of something strange in a field in Alberta. What they investigated was the first crop circles. 1967 in Canada, not England. And they were these rings about 35, 40 feet across in this field in Alberta that they considered, in a report that we also have from the Canadian government, from the Air Force, marked UFO investigation related to circles found in field. And we have this documentation. So strange things were going on, in the 1960s. Now, since then, this is something that's all quite interesting and curious about the annual survey that we're doing. We're getting very few cases like that anymore. Like the classic saucer-shaped objects are almost gone from UFO reporting now. Hardly ever do we get marks or burns or things left on the ground. Those are all gone. The types and characteristics of the UFOs that we get these days are actually quite significantly different. So the UFO phenomenon itself has changed, and right now myself and some colleagues are going back into historical records to see how back into the 40s and 50s and 60s, how the characteristics really changed with time. And it's a lot of work. It's I think I've been working on one set of data for about 2 months now, and I think I've got 600 cases from before 1989. And there's probably 10 times that are out there. So there's a lot of work that's being done. This is the unglamorous stuff that you don't see on the X-Files.
Right. Of course. Right.
Yeah.
The boring stuff. The same thing that we do in when we do paranormal. We sit around in the dark all night.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Once in a while, you'll see a ghost, but most of the time, you see the dark.
Yeah.
It's the same
You watch
thing.
you watch a lot of video recordings of nothing happening in rooms and staircases.
Yep,
Yeah.
and you go,
Yeah.
somebody's stomach, same difference. So, if there's one country in the world that believes in UFOs or understands, does the most, what would it be? Would it be Canada? Because we know it's not the States. Is there another nation across the world that really embraces this more than even you do in Canada?
Well, it might be the United States. I mean, it's really when they've done polls on the population. Do you believe that there is alien life out there and that's visiting Earth? The United States, I think, is right up there. I think it's something like 10% of the population believe that they've seen UFOs, and I think 50% of the population, according to the polls that I've seen, whether it was Gallup or something else, believe that the government is covering up knowledge of what's really going on. So I think the United States, in terms of belief, is right up there. And maybe England might be close. Certainly, some of the South American countries, Argentina, I think they've done some studies there. A lot of people there believe there's a lot of people. Brazil, I think, is very active. And probably, if I was to pick a European nation, it would be like Spain or France, perhaps, because there've been government studies coming out of there. But UFOs are on every continent. In front, one of my books, A World of UFOs, documented specifically all the UFOs on every continent around the world.
So what do you think the difference is between the burn marks now and they got better ships? Is that what it is? Is things changing or what changed?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. In fact, just today, again, I'm doing a historical study, and I found a case in Canada from 1970 that I hadn't really heard of before, of something that crashed into the ocean off the Atlantic coast. And people think, oh, I've heard about that case. It's Shag Harbor from 1967. No, this was 1970 at a little place called, I can't remember it now, something like Little Grace Point or something like that. And it's a little hamlet. And everybody saw this thing fall into the water. And the thing is, if the UFOs are flying around between here and Zeta Reticuli or Arcturus or whatever, they come to Earth and all of a sudden the engine conks out and they crash into Roswell or into the ocean. That doesn't make any sense at all. So why is that? I'm not sure why we're not getting these cases anymore, especially in the age of the internet, such as it is out of the lake. But where
because we're freezing.
We were freezing, yeah. Where we hear about things a lot faster. The information is so much easier to access when the internet's working. But and yet, back then, in the 50s, 60s, 70s, it didn't exist. You didn't hear about it as much, and yet those wonderful cases existed. Why we don't get them now, I'm not sure. That's an interesting puzzle. It's an interesting question, and I think it's worth pursuing. Oh, and my approach is scientific to all of these, whether it's UFOs or paranormal or remote viewing or ghosts or Sasquatch, whatever. And what I say is, if these phenomena are not physical, there's no physical component, they're at the very least psychological or sociological. And in any of those cases, science should be studying them. And
Exactly.
what I'm reassured at is every year there are at least 50 doctoral or master's theses written through major accredited universities on UFOs, spiritualism, psychic phenomena, all these paranormal types of phenomena. And they're published. So science is actually taking a look at all this stuff, though you may not be aware of it. And maybe that's maybe that's something that should be pursued, is better communication about what science really is doing and talking about with regard to all these types of phenomena.
Yeah, my wife Terry and I, she started a group called Psychics Unite, and we're trying to build that across the world someday. We want to be like AARP for psychics. We want to, or AA for psychics. A place where people can go, or people even in the paranormal realm. The paranormal spectrum. And it's great. We have like local meetings, and we haven't been lately. It's all been online because of the pandemic. And but our goal is to study paranormal, is to study people with abilities, and we're starting to do the data because we built a little database that we're starting. But I want to know how many people see the same things. I want to know how many people feel the same things, because not only do I have it, but others have it. So how many? How many people are sensitives? How many people talk to dead? How many people see ghosts? So the more study we can do, the better. And any scientists ever want to come study me, I'm ready. Because if I'm doing readings, I want to be I want to know what's going on. I want to know how I am contacting. How am I doing it? Right now, Right now, I say it's a ghost, but maybe it's through dimensions. Maybe it's through a wormhole, or I'm grabbing data from somewhere, or quantum physics is going to prove this all someday and is going to tell me what I'm doing. And at that time, I'll change my definition of what I am. But right now, I don't have a definition because I'm just using the one that's been most commonly presented all these years as a medium. But if it's something different and science proves it's something different, it's still just as cool to me because I'm still contacting your loved ones. So that's what's so
Right.
cool about it. And I mean, that's the one thing, even in our group, we want to accomplish science because I say this to everybody, I don't believe science can be, I don't think you can take your spirituality and put it on top of science. I think they got to be mixed. It's the whole world's got to be the same. And just as you were talking about us bending space and time, you can't bend the principles of life. You can't break them, but maybe we can change them in some way, or we can do them because, like I always believe a ghost is because energy can't be created or destroyed. So when you leave, there's your energy. You're still your energy. You still have your knowledge. You still have your essence.
And have been interesting scientific studies. I mean, even up here in Canada, Thomas Glendinning Hamilton, you're aware of the Hamilton experiments here. He was a
Mhm.
scientist, medical doctor. He was written up by the Royal Society and all this sort of stuff. And he did scientific experiments back in like 1920-ish
Funny, yeah.
to try and contact the spirit world using scientific methodology. And Iris and the Owens, Iris and up in Toronto, the Psychical Society of Toronto,
Right.
um, they were the ones behind the Philip experiments, where they were able to create. They think they
A ghost.
created a
A
ghost
ghost.
out of these
Yeah.
these. So there have been some scientific experiments, and having when you're talking about you want scientists to even test you, I wonder if it hasn't been done already. What would happen if you were put in an MRI while you were doing a reading or did a reading while you were in an MRI? How would your brain chemistry look before, during, and after some kind of reading? I think there's an interesting thing that could be done even right now.
Yep. I
So
know of a
much.
scientist in Chicago who hooks you up to, that puts all those little things across your head, and I don't know what that is. I forget the name, so I can't say what it is, and I don't want to do it. But
Okay.
he does a brain scan of you when you're doing readings, and he's done so many of us mediums and people with abilities that he now says he could see that this part of your brain, which is your memories, and and the things actually shuts down. He doesn't see this fire up when you're doing readings. So when people are saying that that it's all based off our memories, like we've googled somebody and then we put in their memory and then we go read you, it's not there. It's coming from this side, your left side, your
Temporal
left.
lobe.
Yeah,
Temporal
you're
lobe.
coming
Yeah.
from your left ear. And he goes, this fires up so much more dramatically when you're doing readings. So, well, however this is coming, however this is firing up to get that, that's what I want to find out. And the MRIs and the CAT scans and maybe it's an MRI. No, it's a CAT scan. No, whatever.
No, MRI. Yeah.
But
Well, yeah,
yeah,
and I think
but
the
you know
point
what I
you're
mean? But I would be willing to do that because I would talk to somebody's spirit. I would do a reading while I'm going in because I want to know how it happens. I want to know why, because I don't think that I'm very different than everybody in the world. I just believe that my pieces are a little bit more developed because I think everybody in the world has these
Oh,
abilities.
you're really special, Scotty.
No, I am not. Yeah, I'm special, but that not in that
Oh,
way.
that's not what you meant. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, the other
No,
special.
I think science. I think there's a lot of room and a lot of ways in which science can look at these types of phenomena without making judgment, and I think that's the important thing. And because if you go in with the attitude that all this is all crap, you're not going to find anything. But if you go in saying, okay, let's see what's going on. Can we evaluate? Can we come up with some understanding of what's really going on? Then I think that's an interesting way to approach it. So
Hey, were you at my when we were in Winnipeg at the Marlborough Hotel? Were you there the night I did the seance table stuff
Yeah.
downstairs in the basement.
Yeah, in the press club. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, were you there when we did it?
yeah, yeah. And so that whatever happened. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's still amazing because Scott Temperman talks about it all the time. He goes, I don't know how that table moved like it did. He says
Mhm,
it just, he says because it lifted and moved towards him. He says
mhm,
because of all the grout on the floor, you could have never moved it in that direction that way, and it was pretty amazing. So we still talk about that night, and so those are the things that you look at that scientifically somehow that happened. Scientifically, that table moved and elevated, and it wasn't because we had our hands on top of it. You
mhm,
know what I mean? It might have been because of our energy, able, spirit to help lift it or move it or whatever happened. But it
mhm.
moved, and it moved. It was pretty incredible. And
Yeah.
we were trying to, at the beginning of it, we are trying to get Arthur Conan Doyle to come through, and that, of course, didn't happen. But
Mhm,
when we went to the lady who lost her sister, and it just moved like that.
mhm,
So it's pretty incredible when you're out there. So I mean, everything that we're doing in this realm has other meanings, and that's what we got to find out. And I like the science. I don't. I think when people try to make too woo out of everything, I even get lost. I'm like,
I agree, and the woo tends to really turn people off, and it confuses everything. Absolutely. Yeah.
and even from the spiritual side, you could still not be wooing because I mean, even all my students know that I teach in my classes. I teach energy work because it's energy, because we're an energy being sensing other people's energies. So we have to learn our energies to be able to sense other people's energies and to sense spirit energies. So
Mhm,
the more we spend a lot of time in meditation and energy work to get it because and to me, I think in time, science will be able to help me prove that, be able to show that science of energy is really working. And we're starting because I really am excited about quantum physics. I think that's going to be the proof that we live on.
mhm. Yeah.
I really see that happening.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Excellent. Excellent.
where are we going next?
I don't
And we
know.
haven't frozen a little bit, so
We
this is
haven't. No,
good.
we've been better. We've been going an hour already, and suddenly things are better.
Yeah, things are going good all of a sudden. Woo! Maybe the aliens stop bugging us.
Yeah.
Or the federal
Yeah.
government.
How long do you these usually run? Just out of curiosity.
Hour 20, hour 15,
Okay.
wherever we go. We're pretty
Yeah.
close. We
Yeah.
can,
Yeah. I don't
gotta
have to go.
run, you
I
gotta
don't have.
run.
I don't have to go pee yet. We're fine.
Okay, then we're good because I don't either. So we're in good shape. The two old guys on here tonight. So,
Yeah.
but no, I mean, but this is so exciting for me because I haven't told you this yet. I actually saw my first UFO,
When?
and I know that about a year and a half ago.
Mhm.
And we were driving in Madison, and it was like a kind of a cloudy night, and we're driving home with the family, and and yes, I know that there's a flight lanes in Madison because we have an airport, in and out of Madison. So, but what I saw was a square plane, and that's the best way I can put it. It was square, so not a well, more of a rectangle. It was long rectangle, had lights that were square lights on this side, square lights on this side, and they went back and forth. So they went like across, and then they jumped here, and then they jumped back here, and they went across. So, and it just came in, and I pulled over to look at it. As soon as I pulled over, it went away.
Wow. Yeah.
But for me, that was great because I've been really skeptical of UFOs for many years.
Hmm.
People go, well, how can you believe in ghosts and not believe in other life? I said, well, because I never saw it. So now I saw it. So,
Mhm.
but that's where I've gotten into it more is in the fact that this was a plane I never saw because planes have red and green lights. These were all white. They were square lights. The other ones are, those teardrops on the ends of the planes. You know, so Yeah, but this was a square craft. So when you said earlier, that's why it kind of kicked into me that even if they're oblong, I didn't see the ends because it was kind of, it could have been a whole hole. You know what I mean? It could
Yeah,
have been,
yeah.
you know, you know, oblong type thing, but I only saw the square parts where the lights were, and the whole family saw it. So it wasn't just it wasn't just me.
Now, you guys are pretty close to Michigan,
Hmm.
and when we're in northern Wisconsin, we sometimes take a little trip along the lake, and you can go into, was it Iron Bridge, Iron something, just across where the border of
Oh, Iron.
Michigan,
Yep, yep. That's Iron Mountain.
Iron Mountain, that's it.
Hmm.
Just across there, there's a recurring UFO, recurring light called the Paulding light.
I just
And
was there 2 days ago.
yeah, at Paulding, really?
I was in Paulding 2 days ago. Yeah.
Did you see the light?
No, I did not. But and we didn't stay way late. We tried to look and it didn't happen, so we had to leave because we had to still drive back to Madison. But
Because there's Paulding, and then when we were in, we drove when we for the eclipse a few years ago. We went down to Texas. Oh no, we went down to Missouri, and when we were coming back, we were coming through Iowa, and just south of Des Moines, there's a place called Saint Charles, Saint Margaret. Anyways, they have a spook light there too. And it's interesting, all these places have their light, these little lights that are associated with them that are either
right,
UFOs or have something paranormal associated with them. And that's where the paranormal and the UFOs and the ghosts all seem to cross.
right. So yeah, I mean, so I was happy to finally see mine. And I've talked with. I mean, have you ever talked with Ben Hansen?
Yes, oh yeah, yeah. He's been at
Yeah.
a couple
So
of conferences, yeah, with me.
yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, he was in Winnipeg with us
He
too.
was
But
in
he's been
Winnipeg with us, yeah.
he was on the show. He was on my radio show with me, and he brought on his friend, and we were gotten into it because his dad was a Men in Black here in the United States,
Oh
and
yeah.
so he could never, yeah, and he kept a lot of stuff to the grave that he could never even tell Ben, even though he would go when he would see like the shows on TV, he would say, "That's not how they look," and that's all he would say. So it was pretty incredible to talk about it, and Ben trying to um, put the pieces together of all the stuff that his dad knew that he couldn't say that he took to the grave. So which is amazing that there's people like that yet. But I wanted out. But see, here's the other thing. Okay, so we look at the pandemic as as the thing on how crazy this world has got. I mean, we look at the type of stuff and we were just at home. I know that way more people sense spirit through the pandemic. It was just commonplace because the pandemic was a time that people were no longer running around. They weren't going to going out to drink. They weren't, so they were all home. We were locked in. We were all at home. So spirit is always there, but now is a chance for them to get to you because it's a lot quieter. So a lot of people saw and heard a lot of spirits during this time, and I've seen that in a lot of the comments and the readings I do. Um, but then I say, how would it be when we finally tell everybody and tell them what we've collected with aliens? I mean,
Hmm.
how is this world going to change? How is religion going to change? How is everything going to change? Because look what it changed already just in the pandemic.
I agree. Society is going to change or has changed, but will change even more tremendously because of this and in very subtle ways. I mean, even, um, well, I work at a university and the university has changed because nobody's at university. Well, that's
Right.
not true. A lot of researchers are at university and some students are there. And I know that some places want to go back. But if, we've moved largely online for a lot of what we're doing. So if a lot of the research and education has gone online, of what value are 500 or 1,000 seat lecture halls? I mean, why do you need those if you can
Right.
get the same teaching online? Now, of course, there's a difference between sitting and talking with somebody in a small classroom 5 or 6 people. I mean, it's more interactive. But if you have a choice between sitting in a classroom with 500 other people or learning online on a screen, I suspect that that's a significant of enough difference that you might learn just as much, if not more, because you have the option of checking, chatting, and all that sort of stuff online. So even institutions are going to be changing. Offices, many of the offices, I'm sure our city is just like any other city. A lot of the office buildings are mostly empty because people are working from home.
Right.
Do you need 50,000 square foot offices now with all sorts of cubicles and all that sort of stuff? Do you need that? So
Right.
the nature and the landscape is going to be changing so much. People's relationships with their families. I mean, it's kind of sad. I've talked to some dads who are saying, they've never spent time with their kids before, and they're finding these kids aren't really as bad as I thought. Now, obviously, that's obviously a sign of mental illness too. But there's things that are changing in our society. And restaurants. I mean, yeah, I miss going out to the bar and going out for drink, even though right now we can do that where I am. But
we can in most of the Wisconsin, we can.
Yeah, and but sitting around with just a few friends in a backyard. I don't need to go into a very noisy bar where you can't talk to anybody anyways. You can't have a conversation anyways because the music's so loud. I
do miss the dance clubs.
The dance club while dancing.
I do miss the dance clubs and
There's certain
the show
things
clubs and stuff like that.
You miss, but there's other things like I don't know. I mean, all society is going to be changing in so many ways that it will be interesting to see. And just imagine, I made this point in a radio interview just the other day, as a matter of fact. So just imagine that all the kids who are being homeschooled right now are, because they're in the environment where they're asking, why are we at home? Why aren't we at school? And you have to talk to them about the pandemic and, telling them what COVID-19 is and what's a virus and what's a pathogen and what, and all this sort of stuff. You have to tell them how proteins work and this type of thing. Just imagine if these kids who are homeschooling and studying now on the internet go into science. I mean, the arts is important, there's no question, but just imagine if these kids, if 10% of all the kids who are being homeschooled right now go into microbiology, go into virology, go into pathogenicity, all these types of things, we're learning so much about the human body and how some of these pathogens work and the virions and all these types of things. Just imagine how much better prepared and how much more quickly vaccines and antivirals can be developed if we have that much going at it and there's funding for that. So maybe
even Trump said that today. He had his press conference today that they're about weeks away or months, less than a month away or so from actually putting a vaccine out. So, I mean, look at how many years that would have taken in the past for us to even get that far. So,
well, absolutely. And just imagine that this is in a very quick rush. I mean, we're still probably months away from it being distributed, but just imagine if we had all these, the foresight and all the people ready for the next one.
Exactly.
So that's amazing. And I was going to ask you, kind of on that topic, have you ever had done readings from people whose relatives had passed from the Spanish flu?
I have.
You have, and I'll bet there's some interesting stories there too, because
very much so. It was very similar to what's going on today.
Absolutely.
Except for the fact that they were way more frightened because they didn't have the TV. They didn't. All they had was radio, and they only had the local stuff. So at first they didn't think it was that big because it was local. And at first it started out with the military, during that time, during the war, and that's where most of the guys were getting from it. And then it started spreading.
Yeah.
So they didn't understand that because they didn't get the instant feedback from, it took them a week before the stuff came back in the newspapers and stuff. So it was a very different time. And once they understood it was so bad, then people died. I mean, what was it? 50 million died
Oh,
during that
huge
time.
amounts. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And what we're at somewhere, what, 300,000,
Yeah.
somewhere like that. So, I'm not saying, trust me, any life that has passed is sad, and I want to just make sure they know that. But even today, Dr. Fauci, the one that was here in
Mhm.
the United States, he went on the air and he said that he doesn't believe it'll go away, but he goes, this is not. He goes, I now know that this is not the most deadly virus we're ever going to have.
Yeah,
So he says, so
and let's face it, chickenpox hasn't gone away. Measles hasn't really gone away.
right,
Polio has
shingles.
shingles, yeah, shingles, exactly. Polio went away, and now it's actually there's a few cases that are
Coming back.
coming back. So yeah, we're going to be living with these types of things for a while, but it is interesting to compare us with previous pandemics and what the life was like back then, and
Yeah,
how
it
people
was worse.
it was, yeah, how people's loved ones suffered back then. Yeah.
Yeah, it was, because everything, all the lockdowns happened back then too, because it's no different than now. I mean, the lockdowns were the biggest things. The movie theaters, they couldn't go to the movies. So that was another form of how they got information and news, is when they went to the movie theaters, and
Mhm.
they didn't have that.
Yeah.
So they didn't have that. They weren't able to go out to eat. They weren't, even though they did less of it, they were. So almost everything that we're doing now happened then. So they were just, but they had no constant thing. So in some ways, I always say you should shut up a little bit, but in the other end is no. I think it's a good thing, is because the more that we know about this, the more we can get people's minds in it. The more people, like you said, someday maybe their kids will learn how to make these. And I was saying, even like the common flu, which kills so many people a year, thousands of people, that maybe now that we know how to wash our hands, we know how to distance a little bit more, that maybe we won't get those, maybe we won't get that as much either. And we even have vaccines for
Mhm.
that. We have vaccines for the flu every year, but we still have that, so many people die
That's
because of
right.
it. It's because we didn't believe on how washing the hands or staying apart from each other, or hugging, or that type of stuff, outside your bubble, really how it affects us.
And I'm not hugging you until you get inoculated, Scotty, just so you know.
Okay, that's all right. And I plan to, because of my immune system, and how sick I've been for the
Yeah.
last couple of years, and so if I get it, I've probably gone. So I've been wearing my mask. I've been doing what I need to, but I think some of it's way overboard, and some things, something, unfortunately we can talk about it too, but I think some of it's control. But and I think certain governments and certain cities and certain stuff, they do it that way. But overall, it's got to be for the multiple health of everybody. So
I've got
wash
the
your hands, wear your mask.
I've got the cleanest hands of anybody right now.
I know we do too, like all the time, in and out, hand sanitizer, washing hands, and
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, but I was going to one other point, but yeah, so from the spirits of that time in the 1912s, or 1718 it was, um, yeah, they understood the same thing. They can see, they relate to this time because that's what they went through. They didn't have the knowledge that we did of understanding it, and they didn't have the modern ways to deal with it. That's why so many more people died.
Mhm. Yep, absolutely.
So it was a tough time, and we're not going to get that. And I'm so grateful we're not going to get that, because we don't need to
And
be.
and just imagine, like, even before the Spanish flu, at the time of pox, you know, where
Yes,
they actually scraped the pox pustules off of people's skin and ate them to get their immunity.
right.
I don't know if that would go over now. Just saying, you know, Applebee's is my limit. Anything beyond that, forget it.
Really, but yeah, that's so. But that's where that's my whole sense. I mean, if we can't even handle wearing masks and we can't handle, the truth of not killing each other, how the hell are we going to do it when we learn the truth of aliens? And all the religion who say we're the only ones, and and all
Yeah.
that type of stuff, and then say that I'm doing the devil's work, and it's just there's a time that's coming that's going to be a complete change. And before this whole thing, Spirit told me that back in November, that they were causing a pause for us because the future was going to change. And because of the future changing, that's why they were pausing us. And I didn't see Black Lives Matter. I didn't see any of that happening, but I knew of the pause. And now when you look at it, I can see why they paused us, because we need to become we need to come out of this a spiritual way. And I'm going to post a post from Martin Luther King, um, and the fact that the only way we can get through this is by giving love to everybody. Hate
Hmm.
will not move this away. Love will be the only thing. And I've been saying that for 2 years of love, and I know. And if everybody sees me liking your page, I don't like your page. I love your page because I'm all about love now. Because that's what we have to do. That's what we have to move forward.
Yeah. And the UFO contactees of the 40s and 50s were saying the exact same thing. They're saying, you guys need some humanity. You need to start loving each other more. You have to respect each other more. Stop trying to kill each other at every turn. You really have to get your act together. And the UFO contactees were receiving that message from the aliens from like 1950 onward, and the message hasn't changed. I mean, the modern day contactees from just this week, the aliens are telling them the same thing, and we just haven't got just grasped it. Although maybe this is the time when it's going to be hitting home. Because just imagine what an alien civilization, very advanced, travels all the way here, and they look down at what's going down, and they just
They
sort of
go,
say,
what
"No,
the hell are they doing?
let's get back. We go. Forget it. Let
Yeah,
them to it."
that's right. Let's not contact them. That's dumb.
Yeah.
The coolest thing that I like is when they bring in the wrong ships from the wrong era, or from a few years, and then they come back to see us in a replica of a ship that wasn't even created for another 2 or 3 years. I love those. Do you ever see those photos? I love those. Just go
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Great stuff.
Like blimps that weren't blimps, but here they are, 3 years before they were even created. So thanks for coming to watch us. And but that's the same thing. People go watch things. Like people tried to dress like we did in the '80s, and then when they do, I go, no, we wouldn't have worn that. But we were close, but
Yeah.
not exactly how we dressed back then.
Exactly. Yeah.
Same type of thing. But yeah, I mean that's what it's about, and that's, I mean, okay, yeah. The other thing I was going to say about this too is this is the coolest thing for me is I had to learn this. I had to learn technology. I had to learn how to bring me to life. And before I was just doing radio and stuff, but I was like, it's got to be different. There's got to be more. And then Zoom came, and then Facebook allows me to broadcast on from Zoom online, and then we created for our Psychics Unite group. We created individual groups so they can help locally, but we didn't have anything for globally other than, on Facebook talking and chatting with each other. Now we have a meeting every Monday. And even after we get back to our local groups, we're going to still have the Monday all chapter groups, because it's neat to talk to people from all over the United States in these things. So that's the same thing you're saying in schools. I can see it too, because then lectures can be better, and then even in the scientific world here, I can have everybody in a room and then bring a lecturer on who's be able to talk to us all about a spiritual thing. So it's changing the way we need to grow. It's changing the way we need to communicate. We need to be more one. We need to be one with each other. And you and I can't talk. We got to talk to each other way more than we have in the last few years, because you know what I mean.
Yeah.
This is the important thing, is you and me, is our relationships together. That to me is way more important than anything. But we've let that slip because we've all been too busy. We've all not been able to talk. We're not able to sit down. We're not able. Facebook has helped, but I think we start getting this technology, we get this, which I all believe came from the aliens, by the way, because we didn't have any shit like this before the 50s. And all of a sudden, got the internet and everything. I think they got it from a spaceship somewhere, because how else do they talk? But you know what I mean? Oh, we'll go on that some other day. But anyway, but you know what I mean? But it's about the relationships, not only with your family but your friends. It's the love. It's us all working together as one. So that's
we've
to me
been
is
we've been far too busy. I mean, my wife and I were just talking about this just the other day. You know, we would get home from work and we'd have to go to a meeting. We'd have to go do something, visit this person, go shopping, get this, go. And I would, we were scheduled so busily, so much every day of the week that it was hard to fit in anything. And then it all stopped. And then we were at home just enjoying what we have at home, our own backyard, the books, in my library, and
the
that type
lake.
of, yeah, exactly, in the lake, yeah. So
I can't
um,
tell you when was the last time I came up here to the lake. And this is the family. So why haven't we done this? You know, why don't I change my schedule? So it's exactly the same thing you're talking about. We start enjoying ourselves again.
yeah, yeah. So that's what it's about, relationship and getting back to a quieter, more appreciative, introspective lifestyle. I think is a very good thing.
And I think that'll bring the love of putting all the nations together, as through love, and that'll increase the oneness, and increase our spirituality, and then when the aliens come, they're going to go, oh, okay, now they got it,
Hmm. Yep,
because we've gotten this message many times through history, but we never listen, and hopefully this
absolutely,
time everybody's listening. So Chris,
absolutely.
why don't you tell everybody where they can find you, and your websites, your Facebook page, or whatever, and where to
Sure,
get your books and all that. Self
sure,
plug.
sure. Um, I have a number of websites. Survey.canadianUFOreport.com is for the Canadian UFO Survey. I blog at uforum, uforum.blogspot.com. I'm on Twitter at Ufology Research. I'm on Facebook at Chris Rutkowski. And I'm all over the place. You can get my books on Amazon, and uh, you know, help keep me in supply of the really important stuff in life.
Exactly. Just so everybody knows, next week I am not live. We just talked about being live and everything. So I am actually not even going to try it from my mom's house. This is Terry's mom's house here at the lake. My mom's turning 80 next Wednesday, so the more wishes and birthday wishes we could give my mom next week would be incredible. But I'll be at her house for her 80th birthday on Wednesday, so no show next week. So, but I'll be back in 2 weeks. Yep, 2 weeks, and then I got a bunch more guests, so they're all coming. But so no show next week, mom's birthday. So. But once again, you can go to Scotty Rourke, Psychic Medium on Facebook, my business page, Scotty Rourke, ScottyRourke.com, Scotty.com, SpookyScotty.com. Just go to all my pages and come see me, come for a reading. Come learn on how to do mediumship and how to use your abilities yourself. And then for sure, come out this week for Shadow Hunters, Spirits in Spring, which is Spirits in Summer. But it's going to be this Saturday, Lakeville, Illinois. So, Chris, don't go away. As we sign off, I want to say goodbye to everybody. Thank you for being with us this evening, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Have a good night, everybody.